Hi, I'm Alexi Old. Welcome to If I Did It, a show where we solve PR kerfuffles from the MMA world and beyond. Joining us as always is Kid Nate of Bloody Elbow and
Kid Nate!
UGS Rob.
You mean the bass player for the Doobie Brothers?
Skunk Baxter, lead guitar.
Okay, yeah. I knew you had some Doobie Brother look going on. All right.
And Eugene S. Robinson from Aussie.com and author of Fight Everything You Ever Want to Know About Ass Kicking, but We're Afraid You Get Your Ass Kicked for Asking.
Yes, sir.
So, Eugene,
Sir.
you're the UFC. The MMA world was afire with speculation as to who would replace the injured light heavyweight champ Daniel Cormier after his opponent, disgraced former champ John Jones, name-checked you in a tweet, quote, "So UFC, whether you've got a heavyweight, light heavyweight, it doesn't matter. Let's keep this main event going. Send them my way," end quote. Super Samoan Mark Hunt, weeks removed from a walk-away KO of Frank Mir, tweeted, quote, "I'm your man. If Jones needs a partner late-minute call-ups, I'm in, boy. Juggernaut baby ready," end quote.
Put a shrimp on the bobby.
And the internet nearly exploded. Even Shane Carwin tweeted he'd come back and fight. With so many options available.
I think Shane needs to take it easy. And take it easy, buddy. Calm down.
He's getting his name out there.
Yep.
With so many options available, you replaced DC with OSP.
Yeah.
How can you explain it? Take us frame by frame it to have us jumping, shouting, saying it.
It's the longest, leanest. It kind of rhymes with the word penis. Wait a minute. That's actually the word. It doesn't rhyme with the word. It is the word.
Rise at leanest to meanest.
So what was the question? How does the UFC spin it?
Yeah, how do you spin the OSP? To make people down with OSP.
You know, we're talking about Johnny Boney Joni, so it's a rare. It's a delicate. It doesn't seem like it would be a delicate calculus, especially looking at the guys they ran up against him in his march to the belt, that you would have to be concerned. But there's this. It sits at this weird nexus. Like, you know, he has been getting ready for DC. You know, traffic difficulties aside, so you don't want it to be somebody who's wildly discordant. I like his call out of the entire UFC, but if you think that the bald one is going to run him out there in a Conor McGee situation, you're fucking nuts. They can't afford that. They can't afford. First of all, I'm still, the jury is still out in my mind about whether Johnny Boney Joni is a true believer or a cynical opportunist. I'm not really sure. I'm tending to believe that, given the dual nature of his personality, that he's probably, it's like Virgo, Moon, and Leo. I think he's probably at his root a cynical opportunist, like maybe all preachers' kids are. But Providence has granted him so many second chances, third chances, 9 lives, if you will, that it probably is a confusing scenario for him. But I mean, he's already a non-belt holder. Yeah, he didn't lose it; it got taken away. But he doesn't have an actual belt. You don't want to cheat your later fucking heavyweight matchups, which are, dollars to donuts are most assuredly coming. Nobody's talking about the Mauler. Like I said, he's effectively been dark-starred. So it's pretty clear that JBJ's got 2 fights left at light heavyweight, and then he can start doing some big money, big ticket things, because what we're all paying for right now is to be front row cage side at comeuppance time. So it's like, yeah, it makes good copy. Mark Hunt is there, but he gains nothing by beating the slop out of Mark Hunt. He loses a lot by getting beaten by Mark Hunt, and the reality of it is, this is just a placeholder. He could have done a Verdum and said, I prepared for one guy, I'm ready for one guy, fuck it. Then he didn't. In exchange, what the Baldwin does is give him somebody not too challenging. Now, OSP could always pull a Buster Douglas. I just don't see it happening. He's underwhelmed in probably 90% of his outings. It's a good, safe pick. I did like the fact that he gave the AKA in DC the high hand with the unspoken word. If what you had was going to work, it would have worked. Thanks, but no thanks. So,
What do you think, Nate?
I think Eugene's pretty right on this one. Just, throw the slop out there and let the pigs eat it. Like, you don't need to gild the lily. It is what it is. People are paying to see John Jones come back.
Yeah.
And we've paid good money to see John Jones thrash people we didn't think had a chance to beat him before. And with the Alexander Gustafsson scenario, we've seen John Jones struggle with people that we thought he didn't have a chance against. So, or didn't have a chance against him. So anything can happen in a cage fight. Let's take our chances. But they've stacked the odds in their favor, and that's what smart promoters do. And, you know, I mean, the fans weren't that excited about Cormier versus Jones, too, anyway. Jones beat the brakes off him the first time. There's not a lot of intrigue. I'm not sure. I know Anthony Rumble Johnson's one fight that Jones has left at light heavyweight. I don't know who else. Who else were you thinking of, Eugene?
I was thinking about a Mahler rematch, calling him back from the Dark Star planet, but I don't even see, because I think he's broken.
He needs Gustafsson would need a dramatic win, I think, to come back. And
I'm not seeing it. So, I mean, the reality of it is, at this point now, with Conor McGee headed for certain self-immolation, I think you know they figured out the calculus involves at least one major star. You know, I mean, don't ask for whom the bell tolls, but I think at this point it's tolling for Honda Housey. You know, I don't think anybody sees her last. None of the talk, none of the chatter. The jungle is not talking about her lasting more than 2 fights. In any scenario, if you look at it like a chessboard, which way does she go? Maybe she pisses all over Miesha Tate's parade by taking the belt from her one last time. But you know, like Diana Ross says, tell me where the road turns. What is she gonna beat Cyborg? No. Is she gonna beat Holly again? No. So where, you know, does she just get the belt, retire with the belt, infuriate everybody, and go, you know what, I got movies to do, Roadhouse is back on, or some bullshit like that. So you know, you got to have a marquee guy. That's a marquee guy. I don't think.
And so, do you, though? I mean, with what Nate brought up in terms of the underperforming, is that something you make part of the package? Like you tease people with, you know, the last time John Jones beat a person, he almost got his ass. You know, he got his ass whooped, but won the fight in a narrow decision. One of the greatest fights of the year. You know, like do you whip out that footage of underdog?
He's also pre-excused with the whole jail thing. I mean, if you don't think 2 or 3 days in the pokey is going to slow you down, you might be wrong. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know, I know what the nut jumpers will say if he loses, mostly because I'm sort of a nut jumper myself in this regard. But you know, it's a good. How about this? It's a good attempt at a save. I'm not even going to say it's a good save. It's a good attempt at a save. Truth be told, we'll only know the day after.
Speaking of which, Nate, you're Daniel Cormier. How do you preserve your relevancy with a belt you can't defend and a title most observers think you didn't deserve in the first place?
Cormier's made his bed, man. This injury was the last straw. I mean, losing to John Jones, you can't blame a guy for losing to John Jones, but he lost to John Jones. That was a huge knock to his brand value. He came back. He won an incredibly tough fight against Rumble. He defended his belt after that. He's the light heavyweight champion. He gets, you know, everybody wants to see him defend that belt, even if it means getting run over by John Jones again. But now that he's hurt, and people are tired of AKA fighters pulling up hurt, they're tired of Cain Velasquez, they're tired of Daniel Cormier, they're tired of Luke Rockhold, any of these guys. AKA has been dropped in the grease by the UFC over and over again for overtraining. And for Cormier, I don't know, you can go 2 ways. You can either run your mouth a lot while you're hurt, which is what he's doing, which I don't think is a good look, or you can shut up and heal and come back. And I would recommend the latter approach, but he's still out there on Twitter going back and forth with John Jones, and I guess he wants to stay relevant and stay in the game, but everybody knows, and we don't know. I mean, Cormier could win, but everybody knows Jones is going to just pace him when they fight again. So it's just whistling past the graveyard as far as I can tell. I think it needs to STFU.
Yeah. What do you think, Eugene?
You know, he's a friend of Knuckle Up, and I like this guy.
Knuckle Up, where nepotism always wins.
Hey, we call that the American way, my friend.
Nepo up.
Yeah, I know. In fact, I don't respect people who don't respect cronyism. You got to be kidding me. You know, it's a bad thing when I do it, a good thing when they do it. Forget it. I'd rather give money to people I know than people I don't know, as evidenced by the numbers of Knuckle Up fans who made it in the Oxbow shows the past 2 days. But I'm going to have to say that it's a winnowing number of options left for DC, and he's fortunately what they've said is that the injury will only set him back 4 to 5 weeks. But that's essentially a couple of UFC cycles down the road. And, again, you have institutional skepticism. I can feel it. I can feel it happening. Institutional skepticism that's now, oh, Kane's back is hurt. He's going to be better, huh? He's going to fight for Doom sometime. You know what? I don't believe you. It's like I'd play that game with my dog where you want the ball? Here's the ball. Here's the ball. Here's the ball. Here's the ball. And at a certain point, the dog does a chimp chill out like, I don't want you or your fucking ball. I'm just going to stare off into the mid-distance and dream about it tearing your throat out. I don't think they trust him anymore. So, DC could keep drawing. I think he's driven to do it for emotional reasons. But the look I see in his eye when he comes face to face with Jones, it's like, man, do you really think in 6 months, whenever the cycle turns around to favor you guys again, whenever they can do the build-up again, whenever they can put you guys in again, do you really think in 6 months that you're going to be better off because that magical clock you have at home that runs backwards? Nah, man. I mean, and then the guy glosses you as a coward. I mean, so now you're in a fucked up situation where the smart thing to do would be, you know what? I'm however old the dude is. What is he, almost 40? I'm old. I got the belt. I don't have it in me for another cycle, man. Like Rollins said about, dumping music. He goes, you don't have music. Music has you. And if it doesn't have you, step aside, son. Mm-hmm. So at this point now, pride is driving it.
It was merciful of Henry to notice that 8 years after everybody else concluded he couldn't write a song to save his life.
Exactly. God, man, I told you I was trying to pull an intervention to get him to stop, but that movie he just did was all right, actually.
He's a good actor, good spoken word guy.
No, he's not a good actor. But this movie, he never died, I think is the name of the movie. It played to his strengths, and the writing was really good. It was actually a good movie, and I don't say that easily. So the spoken word stuff is crap stand-up comedy. I don't like it,
getting back to
getting back. So
Father Time.
I think DC. You know what? If given the choice between being quiet and doubling down, I'm gonna go with doubling down. But I don't think DC has done it. He's done it. If Johnny Boney Joni is responding with go change your tampon, would you hurt your vagina? I think you need to go crazy. My response would be just to go. I remember racing some guy up the stairs in high school, and he goosed me to slow me down, and I flipped out and wrestled him on the stone stairwell. We slid down like 8 stairs. It was like, you got to double down crazy. You got to start talking about Jones's kids, his fiance. You got to go out big, like a flaming Roman candle shooting across the night sky. That's Jack Kerouac.
Eugene's advice: always go crazy. That's
Hey, you don't like I said yesterday about that guy having sex with a crazy woman. You just got to do it, man. That'll take care of everything.
You just got to do it. Yes. And read Sex with Eugene, his sex column on Aussie.com.
What should Eugene? You're Yoel Romero, and we don't want to forget you. Okay.
Hey, MMA being very, very good to me.
The U.S. Anti-Doping Agency accepted your appeal and shortened your suspension from 2 years to 6 months. With your 39th birthday approaching at the end of April and a July return now possible, what PR moves do you make to ensure your #1 middleweight title contender status is restored by the UFC as soon as humanly possible?
No. You can't. There's nothing you can do. And the UFC, their hands are tied. First of all, this is not a guy who moves any needles. Talk about guys who don't move any needles. It's not a guy who moves any needles. He doesn't have a lot of cachet in terms of, people pulling for him behind the scenes, a team that they like. He's just a guy there who's got some marquee value because he looks good. And he's muscled. And the reality is,
and he's skilled and scary.
He is skilled. If you consider fading away before you get to the final championship round, skilled, and if you consider a guy without the magical liquids to be scary, I mean, what does he do? He's 39, man. The guy's not going to get a job as an assistant wrestling coach. He might as well ride it out as well. But there's nothing. I mean, the UFC seems to be honor bound to cool. Yeah, okay, great. 6 months. They can't have him fight. It's not like 6 months and the guy's off the ice because it's still part of the conversation. The magical powders, So
there's nothing he can do. There's nothing you would suggest that he can do to make it better for himself.
Shut the fuck up. train and just hope that the phone call comes in. You know, maybe there's a car in Latin America where he's needed. You know, maybe things switch around, somebody gets hurt. I mean, he's kind of he's waiting for a lottery ticket now, and there's nothing he can do about that. Especially if you study steroids, you know anything about steroids. 6 months, you can't even compete in a natural bodybuilding. You know, the second tier natural bodybuilding show where they say things like, well, you have to be clean for what, a year? That doesn't even matter. You could stop taking steroids and still benefit from the effects 6 months out, most certainly. You know, I mean, if you have an 8 to 12 week cycle, what does 6 months mean? Get the fuck out of here. It's nothing. So,
what do you think, Nate?
Well, I think Yoel needs to double down. I think Eugene's
go crazy.
Yes, he needs. I think he needs to do one thing. He needs to do. He's basically a bigger Hector Lombard, and Hector Lombard gave up on the welterweight division after his steroid bust. I think Yoel should just give up on middleweight, move up to light heavyweight. I think you ought to be retweeting the news about the Rolling Stones playing a stadium in Cuba and be like, you know, 1 year from today, it's going to be me versus John Jones for the light heavyweight title right here in this stadium in Cuba. Just go big, go crazy, you know. Wrap that shit up in a bag and light it on fire and put it on Dana's porch. That's my advice.
That's what he should do. That's what he should do. What do you think the likelihood is that he will do that?
He'll do nothing, and if he does something, it'll be something stupid like, you know, coming out in support of Mississippi's anti-gay bigot law. I mean, you know, like, and then claim he didn't say it and it was a mistranslation. That's what he'll do. He's not a savvy cat, so you know.
I think he should just tap in. We should just tap into the whole. If he can tap into that whole religious furor and fan base without going there with the Mississippi thing, you know, like, you know. I don't know. I've always been curious to see guys like that in a fighting industry to actually try to tap that base. And I don't.
It's hard in this sport as a Cuban, Afro-Cuban, to come out and aim for that cracker redneck Christian audience. There's just a couple of hurdles: the language barrier, the commie barrier, the cultural barrier. They're not going to accept you as one of them. I don't see him coming out as Ben Carson anytime soon. So, you know.
Well, you know, his fight style, it's funny, is like a Ben Carson fight style. It's sleepy, and then he explodes. But then again, Ben Carson never exploded.
Except for the explosion part.
Except when he was trying to stab somebody in the abdomen.
Yeah. Allegedly. He had to retract it. So.
Allegedly.
But that's why there was this really great YouTube video, like, stringing together all of his pronouncements of violence to a heavy metal soundtrack. He's like, I just hit him with a hammer in the head, and I didn't want to stop. I stabbed him with a knife. I liked it. Has anyone here ever hurt somebody and wanted to do it? It's hilarious. It's just, you know. So anyway, maybe there's hope. You can whip out Ben Carson as his manager, and you know.
I do want to mention. It's very interesting that USADA folded in the face of claims of a tainted supplement when Romero didn't produce a supplement, they didn't test the supplement. I mean, we've had dozens of fighters come out with the old tainted supplement line, which is entirely possible because they don't regulate supplements at all. So you get steroids in your supplements all the time just buying over the counter. But Sean Shirk and dozens of other guys have been busted with and claimed tainted supplements and got no mercy. I think they're once bitten, twice shy after the Kung Lee fiasco and some other things. So, you know, y'all got off lucky. And to me, if you're lucky, double down, push your luck.
Last time I went to that cave, there was a bear in that cave. Next time, maybe there won't be a bear in the cave. I like that.
Indeed. Is this the sound of a curveball?
This is a curveball, and this is for you, Nate. You're an anti-Donald Republican.
Yeah.
With Ted Cruz's Wisconsin Republican primary victory bringing us closer to a contested convention, do you trust Ted to save your party, or do you have a surprise candidate in your pocket?
Ted's a piece of shit. I just need to say that.
Well, be that as it may, and while we're waiting, maybe the D.C. Madam may or may not have Ted Cruz's number in her book.
I love that D.C. Madam. I hope she comes out and crushes Cruz.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. The last D.C. Madam that started making noises like this ended up hanging herself in her barn. So, you know, I think
committed suicide, stabbed himself 8 times in the back.
Yeah, the actuarial tables on D.C. Madams who start talking about their client lists, not so good. But as long as she's got a good life insurance policy, the lawyer says there's a dead man switch that'll publish all the stuff should anything happen to him or her.
Yep.
But that's just irresponsible rumor mongering, which I know no member of the GOP elite would would engage in. Unlike
We are
Roger
not the
Stone.
party of divisiveness.
Yes, I am
Since
enjoying
about 5 minutes ago.
watching old Nixon era rat fucker Roger Stone turn loose on the GOP. He's beginning to get banned from the cable networks, but threatening violence and threatening to dox superdelegates and give out their hotel room numbers at the convention and stuff like that. I'm enjoying all that, but
I want them to okay guns on the floor. I'm praying to whatever. They gotta okay guns on the floor.
The Secret Service has vetoed that, but if Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton were in charge, there would definitely be guns at the Republican.
Secret Service. Who are the Secret Service?
Exactly. I mean, do we accept these?
It's part of Zog, man. It's part of Zog.
Exactly. Jackbooted thugs, like Dick Cheney said, or whoever it was. But
Nazis and yarmulkes.
Back to the question. That your favorite topic. It took you this long to get to the Nazis.
I had to get in
yarmulkes right away. All right. If I'm the GOP elite, no, I don't trust Ted. I'm going to keep ineffectually wishing that Paul Ryan would get in and save our day at the convention. Maybe I'll have another breakfast or order some more champagne, maybe shop for new cars, and when I get back from the Tesla lot, then I'll think about doing something about this. And this is how you end up with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz as your standard bearer prospects. So, no, the GOP elite ain't going to do jack. They're going to keep hoping and wishing and praying for Paul
What song
Ryan
is that, man?
It is. I was thinking of the same thing.
It's like a 50s song.
That's the Backrack David. I think Dionne Warwick did the hit version, but maybe it's Billy J. Kramer. I don't know. But anyhow, that's what the GOP elite's going to do. Nothing. Yeah.
Man. What about you?
I actually have a GOP party member here.
Is this your cop, buddy?
Yeah, I want to do I'm going to have a helpline. Do you think the GOP establishment's going to do anything about Cruz? You know, they're going to line up behind him. Have they already?
I don't know, man. It's 50-50. It's either that or they're going to pull out a Kasich or somebody else.
Yeah.
See, who? Ask him, who would they pull out other than Kasich? Who would
they pull out other than Kasich? They want to know.
Ryan.
Yeah, that's what he said. Ryan, they're gonna put.
Somebody's got to stand up for the job creators. Cut taxes on the wealthy.
Yeah, well, and I love this belly crawling thing that he did, where he stands up in front of the American flag. I know when I said I was just wrong. I was just wrong when I said there were takers, because there are plenty of people suffering in America. Many of them in Wisconsin. Many of them in my district. They're suffering. Suffering, I tell you. And whenever there's a little guy suffering, I'll be there cutting his benefits. Whenever you know. And I got to tell you, man, if he stands a chance of winning, I'll be there with him, because going CO is okay with me, you know, and that doesn't stand for conscience objector, you know. No, I think that it's interesting to see muscle work. It really is super interesting to see muscle work. And like I said, I'm not a Republican, not registered as a Republican, but I'm pushing for what I feel is a genuine wrinkle and the real will of the people, and more importantly, the real face of that fucking party. And you know, I don't want to see the will of the people subverted. You know, so the press is jumping on. If you've seen the headlines this morning, Trump crushed.
Yeah.
You know, it was 13 points. You don't see anything about Hillary being crushed.
No.
They're so in the bag on wanting this guy because they think he's bad for the party. He is the party. How come you don't realize that? You know, and between him and Cruz, you know, he might have called for stern measures, the wall thing and the rapist thing. That sounds that, you know, the audio on that is bad, the optics on that are bad, but the reality of it is, you know, this abortion thing that people figure, we finally got him on the abortion thing. You know who was super quiet about that? Cruz. Because Cruz is
the last thing that the pro-life people want to mention is that we're going to start prosecuting women for this shit. That's
exactly. Even though Cruz is like, you're raped by your father and pregnant, God's will. You know, I mean, come on.
Have a baby, test positive for THC in your bloodstream, prison with you. You know, like.
Right. Nah, true believers, man, they suck, and Cruz sucks as deeply. I mean, there's a line. I'm feeling he smells. Not only does he look like McCarthy, he smells like McCarthy. I thought, you know, from Alger Hiss on through, I thought scumbags like that were finished, even in that party, and it really pains me that he won Wisconsin. I know people in Wisconsin thought they were doing the right thing, but they really weren't. You know, they're voting with the machine.
The KGB files vindicated McCarthy and Whitaker Chalmers and all those cats.
Man, that was a dark, dark time, you know. I mean, anyway.
Roy Cohn should have been president. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, let's move on to the next
You know,
one.
for the former father-in-law said, looked me in the eye once, and he goes, Nixon, good man. He was just trying to excite me, and it worked, you know.
Well, speaking of excitement, Eugene, you're a South Dallas resident.
Yes.
According to Fox 4, an armed anti-mosque group called the, quote, Bureau of American Islamic Relations, BEAR, made a stop in your neighborhood last Saturday, only to quickly retreat when faced with a few hundred counter-protesters who, quote, swarmed the parking lot at Eva's House of Barbecue, vowing to defend their streets, chanting Black Power, end quote, while police watched from the roof of a nearby funeral home. It seems very dramatic, right?
Let's not forget that the UEP Newton Gun Club was there with their shotguns in their hands.
Oh, hold on.
They weren't just chanting Black Power.
Keep this straight without a scorecard. Spell it out for me again. Who's in the street? Who shows up first?
BEAR shows up first.
And this is the Bureau of what?
Going around to mosques all over the Dallas.
Bureau of American Islamic Relations.
It's a parody.
They support Islamic relations.
No, they hate Islam.
Okay, so the
They're
guys
like an anti-mosque group. They protest outside of mosques.
Okay, so this the group that protests outside of mosque shows up outside of a mosque first.
It shows up outside of a Nation of Islam mosque. This is their first time to cross the nation.
I got it. Shows up outside of a Nation of Islam mosque. Okay.
In South Dallas, the dark
right,
side.
in South Dallas. So okay, so the anti show up first, then who shows up?
The UEP Newton Gun Club. Because
Is that really
the
what it's
nation
called?
doesn't carry guns.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. The nation doesn't carry guns.
Right.
But
So
they
the
have
UEP
friends.
Okay, so the Huey P. Newton Gun Club shows up.
Yes,
Converges.
along with several hundred other people.
And then what?
And then BEAR beats a hasty retreat.
And the cops do nothing.
Well, they're there, just in
They're
case.
watching.
And so the question is?
So the question is, if you are a South Dallas resident, what PR moves can you make to prevent outsiders from instigating a race war at your doorstep?
Man, this is like such a fucking stupid monkey show. I can't even fucking believe it. You know what happened after 9/11, and you might have remembered this. You know, if you were, there was some version or variation of chickens coming home to roost sentiment in the immediate, like the first few hours in the aftermath of 9/11, maybe even before the tower fell. It's like there had been rumblings like, well, you know, you fucked over the Indians, Chinese, and us. Now you got some Arabs are fucking crazy. And then the first thing that they surfaced with, two things. And these are micro points that if you might have missed them if you didn't see it happening, but it was there. The micro point is Osama bin Laden came out. They had tapes from him talking, and he described African Americans, black Americans, as fucking slaves. Dismissively described them as those slaves, and it suddenly dawned on black Americans that there was no common cause with Arabs. In my neighborhood in Brooklyn, the bodega was sold by the Colombians and to the Cubans, and eventually from the Cubans to the Palestinians. And it was like, you know, the Palestinians suddenly started to feel like occupying forces, as hated and as uncomfortable of a match as the cranky Asian guys who own the eatery behind the bulletproof glass who treat you like shit when you show up for a fried rice. You know, so black folks were like, what the fuck? And then the video shows of the black guy jumping off of the trade tower. And then Wu-Tang Clan comes out with the W, and they said, who the fuck, the line is, who the fuck blew our buildings up, you know? And it was like all this kind of pro-American sentiment. And for a full couple of cycles, you know, they lost what would have been an inbound constituent, because the black community, man, people were always buying the Final Call, you know, the Islam paper, before they realized that these were probably the guys who killed Malcolm X, that these guys were religious fucking lunatics, that they were taking hits out. They killed the guy, the journalist in Oakland. You know,
they put together the Million Man March. They inspired Chuck D.
They called
William Van March and Chuck D.
They called the
assassination
Judaism a gun of religion. There are a lot of, they had a period.
There's good and the bad, but you got to admit the Nation of Islam has been more or less accepted as part of the African American community because they've been involved 40, 50, 60 years now. They're not seen as part of the Arab American community.
They're the only people who give a shit about people getting out of prison.
Yeah, well, they do things. I mean, they take care of their people and they do stuff, and they're part of the African American community. They're not part of the Arab American community, and people, I think, more or less get that distinction, except for our fine friends in Bear, who are a little confused as to who they were fucking with, because they've been going around Irving, Texas, and Arlington, Texas, going outside these mosques with these immigrants who are basically pretty nervous and quiet, and hey, why are you messing with us? I mean, they've been pushing it and pushing it and pushing it in DFW for a while. They arrested the kid with the alarm clock and the whole bit. And now they come up and start fucking with the Beehive.
Yeah, I think it was a major sort of tactical error. You got, you don't want to do anything to I mean, Arabs look at a guy like me and they don't see any fucking common cause. I was followed around a souk in
Well, that's a pretty broad generalization.
Nah, it's a broad generalization, but the reality of it is, I'm going to give you an anecdotal. I was being followed.
You can say the same thing about Nigerians.
Yeah, Nigerians are not to be fucked with, man.
But I'm just saying, there's all these splits, and if you're tuned to the nuances.
Nigerians and Arabs, nice to meet.
Well, look, let me tell you, I've been followed around.
I don't get a Nigerian cab. I'm not saying I'm racist, but I'm just saying I've had some bad experiences with Nigerian
Look, I'm followed around the souk by some guys who I'm pretty sure were Jordanian Secret Service, and the first guy who braces me is Jordanian, and then the second guy who comes up is an African guy. So clearly, one is a boss, one is a henchman. The African guy is bigger, and they speak to me in French. And they're asking me.
Where was this?
This was in Amman, Jordan, and they speak to me in French. And the first thing that the Jordanian guy braces me, so he's like, hey, he says something in Arabic, and I look confused, and then he looks over at the big black guy who's Nigerian. It comes up, and the guy says to me in French, are you from France? I say, no, I'm not fucking African. Or no, he said, are you from Niger? He thought I was from Niger, And I opened my mouth, and the guy goes, "Oh, okay, it's American." So it was clearly like, it was clear that the Jordanian guy didn't feel any common cause with me. It's like, you, my friend, we are not the fucking same. It's not to an American. Yes, we are the same. The swarthy people, all the same accents. I can't understand you. You're all the same. But in reality,
you fight amongst yourselves time and time again. It's so confusing.
Well, there was that whole thing. Yeah, well, there was a whole thing. If you remember that thing in the '80s, there was a big fight on college campuses where is Egypt part of Africa?
Right.
And I had professors at Princeton who were friends of mine who were saying like, look, it's fucking okay, it sits on the same continent, but it's not the same. And I'm like, okay, this is.
No, but also it's weird if you go back also historically. You go to look at Nubians. I mean, it's just there's too many politics involved where people like, are they worthy enough, or are they So it's a weird. The thing is a nation thing. One of my favorite nation stories in DC is huge presence, and they had this housing project in Southeast that had been totally taken over by drug dealers. Go figure, like at the height of like the crack epidemic. And so what happened was there are Nation of Islam patrols in the neighborhoods. Drug dealers need to get out the neighborhood, and we're cleaning up the neighborhood. And so what happened was there was one patrol that was walking, and this guy ran out of one of the buildings with a shotgun in his hand. It's like captured on film, like from a distance. So the guy runs out of the building with a shotgun in his hand, and the guy who's leading the march turns to the guy and points, and the guy's like, the nation guys swarm on him, and the guy says, "Get his gun." And they whip the gun out of his hand, like, break his neck, and like stomping the shit out of this guy, right? And it's all being caught on camera, right? So it's like, yeah, stomp on him, break his neck, break his neck. And the move they used to take him down was like Magnum TA's belly-to-belly suplex. So my brother's like, is that Muslim TA? Good grief. So he's like, break his neck, break his neck, break his neck. And then suddenly looks, get the camera. And then all of a sudden, the camera turns around. And then you see the reporter Joe Johns like the next day with big old knots on his head. Like, no, Nation of Islam attacked me and a cameraman and a wonton next.
Yes.
They don't fuck
Okay.
around. Like, this is not the group. It's like you mentioned earlier. Like, you just don't. There's a total difference between.
Okay. Let's wait before we're gonna go for this Wizard of Oz moment where you really believe this actually happened. What's the likelihood that they're gonna give chase the guy half a block, brace him, and remove the phone from him, and then change their minds, give it back to him so he can upload?
No, this is back in the 80s with a camera. It was an actual, it was a news crew. It was
so
Channel 4
feed.
news crew that happened to be doing a report from a distance, and they were watching it. And so that's why when the leader looked and said, "Get the camera," you saw literally the perspective swoop around, and you heard the audio.
It's like the footage when Bray Wyatt was burning down in that bar, and the cameraman looks up at the fire and then just slowly backs out of the bar.
Okay, so it was a live feed. I got it.
It was.
All right. Yeah, I don't think. I think if you want to, you don't want to encourage, if you have any say in it, you don't want to attack Russia. Why would you want to attack Russia? Why do that? You have a non-aggression
Ask our State Department, but
what's that?
Ask our State Department why they keep jacking around the Ukraine. But
that seems ill-advised. Well, they have to so that NATO doesn't feel insignificant. They have to keep making noises, and pretty much at a place like Poland at this point now they're trying to be independent. They don't like the West. They don't like the East. But I'm talking about.
We're going Nazi.
Yeah, they are actually. That they have fired all the people.
It's the happy medium.
Yeah, there's no free press anymore in Poland. They've kicked through the doors at the European Commission and NATO. It's a bad scene. But I'm talking about specifically here, creating constituencies in America that could hurt Americans. You don't want to do this. This was ill-advised, and they need to talk to a PR consultant.
Yeah, but the neighborhood in South Dallas, I think they've done what they need to do, which is we've got guns. Come here and jack with us. You're going to get jacked back.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's going back to that neighborhood with waving guns around.
But getting press will make you do strange things.
That's true.
This wasn't the kind of. They've been getting a lot of press, and this was. I don't think this was good.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, that brings us to this week's teachable moment.
Ooh.
Nate, you are Panama-based law firm Mossack Fonseca.
Rings on every finger.
Oh my God, this is a juicy story.
According to the BBC, 11 million of your documents were leaked by an unknown source, which allegedly demonstrate how your firm has, quote, helped clients launder money, dodge sanctions, and evade tax, end quote. While you claim that you have, quote, operated beyond reproach for 40 years and have never been accused of or charged with criminal wrongdoing, end quote, the international ramifications have been immense and cost Iceland's prime minister, who is just one of the many world leaders implicated in the leak, his job on Tuesday. Are there any PR moves you can make to salvage the slivers of trust with your current clients and spin this debacle to potential prospects?
I would say shut down the firm, except I noticed the other day Ashley Madison was still online and advertising, so they're still putting pop-ups on your computer. I'm saying that I went to a porn site, but just
Oh my God, man! I can't believe you just did that. You need some PR consulting.
This is the moment Eugene's been waiting for.
Porn is still legal in this country. Porn is still legal in this country. No, but I'm just saying, it's time to rebrand, break up, get some new partners. Let's. I don't think you can dig your way out of this hole. You got a lot of powerful people pissed off. You've shown the ass of a lot of people that have some stroke, and in the end, all you are is a bunch of Panamanian money launderers, allegedly. And
former Nazis. I mean, that's one story that came out too.
The firm, it's very interesting how those guys always keep their connections. It seems like
that's why I'm bringing them up. Under every rock, man. You can't. Dave Emery makes a claim, the continued claim, and it's more true than not. It's a Rosetta Stone for bad shit from 1923 to now, man. It just doesn't stop.
The media coverage of this is very interesting, though, because you notice Putin was in the headlines all over American media. Putin's not named in any of this stuff. There's tons of Russians over there, but not Putin. We don't, and the Prime Minister of Iceland, coincidentally,
he's dating Wendy Dang. That's what we know.
Yes, you can connect to Putin, to Rupert Murdoch, to Mick Jagger, and two beds. But anyway, The
2 degrees of
media
separation.
coverage of this has been fascinating because they're pillorying Putin, they're pillorying the Chinese Communist leadership. They don't mention the president of the Ukraine that we installed is all over this place.
Yep.
And they do bring down the government of Iceland, which coincidentally is the one country in the West that prosecuted bankers after the financial crisis. So,
Yep.
it's the classic bring down Elliot Spitzer kind of thing. Like, you start prosecuting Wall Street, you got to remember Bob Dylan's words: to live outside the law, you must be honest. And
You must be honest.
Homeboy fucked up. Pirate Party's about to take over Iceland. And, I think for Fonseca or whatever their name is, get under a deep, dark hole and run.
I don't think the Nazi-backed, Panamanian firm is the real issue here. And I don't think the journalist...
They're only a pawn in the game, if I can.
Correct. And I don't think the journalist who was showing up taking large amounts of credit for it, or really... I mean, isn't this seems like it's got Anonymous's fingerprints all over it, right?
Nah. There's no evidence this is a hack. This is probably a leak from within the law firm.
Well, they claim the law firm had a... They made some statement this morning that they are the real victims. It wasn't internal. You don't have to worry about us. It wasn't internal. Someone from the outside that hacked us, and that's the crime that needs to be solved because we weren't doing anything illegal.
But the docs, these docs are not. WikiLeaks doesn't have these docs. They're not on an open file on the internet. They were given to the South German Times, the Süddeutsche Zeitung, and those guys have kept it very tightly controlled. They've brought in, other journalists with expertise. They're trying to do this in a very methodical, old-school fashion. Yep. This is not anonymous Julian Assange type shit. This is,
even though his name has come up more than a few times.
Julian
Assange.
Yeah, he's also the kind of guy that gets dropped in the grease when this shit hits.
But I mean, what I remember when the first Balco thing and Conti's name came up, and somebody said it felt very much like Joe Pesci's character in JFK. It's a mystery wrapped inside of enigma. The floating hairpiece. Somebody said, "This is you have stumbled on, the tip of a much more gooned out iceberg, and this is not going to stop." And it most certainly did it. Where they got Mary and what was it? I can't even remember her last name. The track and field. I mean, that cut. It's still, Alex Rodriguez. It's still 10 years hence emanating, bad waves of bad. And I think we're about to see the same thing. I mean, there are, these guys will conveniently, just like Blackwater, change your name.
I think you mean XE or.
Oh yeah. Look how convenient that is. I'm not. Hey, buddy, my name is Chuck Manson. I'm not at all connected to Charles Manson. I remember a guy named Charlie, but you can call me Chuck. Come on.
Yeah.
So that little sleight of hand, that's what they should engage in. You think the firm, Eugene?
What do you mean should? I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, that's already begun.
It's what I think is so strange about it. It's one thing if this is the activity they're engaged in and there was no kind of leak whatsoever. Then you can, the fact to a certain degree, it's a part of it is positive advertising because look what we did for these people. But the fact of the matter is, if there is a leak, if there's a security breach, the secretive nature of what you do is out the window. And so now. No. Like, you can't really hold up a shingle and say, "Hey, guess what? Yeah, we can hook you up." No,
Kid Nate just said it, man. It's like, you could still go on Ashley Matt. This is advertising.
Well, yeah, it's like Stratfor. For a long time they had the whole thing. We're ex-CIA. We've got all the secrets. And then they get hacked like utter clowns. Yep. I got leaked in that leak too, And so far, I'm not in the Fonseca thing, although the guys from The Intercept are, Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald, and all their paychecks I'm seeing getting tweeted out. But Stratford recovered. Stratford's still out there peddling their expertise. Maybe we live in an era of no consequences for nothing, and maybe these guys will just keep clowning down the road. Who knows?
No, I think the issue is transparency is your friend. It's impossible. Like at one point.
Not if you're in the money laundering business.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah, the two fields in which it's not: money laundering and contract killing. Those are probably still shadowy businesses,
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, and there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, it's a little eerie to hear that sound after Contract Killer. It's time is up, baby. Watch out. So, Eugene, who is in the Lost Battalion?
Somebody raised an interesting point, and I'm gonna have to rain on this parade. And they said, all right, it probably won't happen, but if it does happen, isn't this a violation of the main precept of Lost Battalionage that you can't get yourself out? What happens if Mr. Woodpile, Chris Weidman, beats Rockhold? Would he effectively be outside of Lost Battalion?
He's a champion. You can't be a champion in Lost Battalion unless you're Rafael dos Anjos.
I'm going to say, you see how pernicious...
Or Daniel Cormier.
All right.
You see how pernicious the Lost Battalion... What Weidman has effectively done is run headlong into the mist and said, follow me. And you got people out there who are like, we got to follow him. We got to... He knows where we're going. You can't... you can't... I mean, this delusion is a curious thing, man. I mean, yeah, it could happen. He could win. And what? He's honor bound at this, whatever freaky way he wins. Maybe he opens up a cut and he's bleeding, and he's not going to beat him in a traditional way. Maybe there's a DQ, maybe there's there's going to be a trilogy. He's not going to make it by him twice. So just stop thinking about that. He's not getting out. He's not getting out. He's not getting out. That's the thing about it. It's not being dark starred, and it's not being dead, but he's not getting out. So who's in the Lost Battalion this week? Okay, I don't know if it'll surprise anybody, but it might be unpopular, and he's a friend of Knuckle Up, and it hurts me to say it, but I'm going to have to say DC. Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, man. If you show me a chessboard that has any intelligible moves on it for him, I'll be glad. Oh, how about this? I know what somebody's going to say. With Kane probably out of the running for a good long time, what about DC just does a comfortable thing, gains some weight, goes back to heavyweight? And what, man? What? What? Yeah. Meet up with Jones in heavyweight?
Once the UFC thinks you're likely to get hurt rather than fight, it's like you're Sly Stone or Hank Williams or George Jones or whatever. You're no-show Jones. People ain't buying tickets anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's just know.
I mean, I didn't want to say that. I really didn't want to say it.
Because Sly's going to turn it around anytime now.
Yeah, there you go. There's that George Custer type thinking, man. I think we can pull this out. I mean.
Rick James sat him down, had to talk with him, told him cocaine is no way to go, and that '80s comeback failed.
No, I mean, look, it's been a good run. You can't let pride hurts. You can't be goaded into this, man. You just can't. It's like like Jones said, I'm 27 years old. I'm only getting better. Where are you? It's like, come on, man. There's truth to what he speaks. And now you've got this collision course thing with this guy. It's like, come on.
And
man.
also, he's crawled into the brain pan really. He's so deeply. Yep. That's the saddest thing about it is you see the first tweet that Cormier did attacking Jones. Like, okay, and then you see a second and a third, and you're like, oh God, dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I remember when Henzo got his arm broken in that match, and the guy Todd Hester, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Grappling, he said, man, what were you thinking? Why would you get your arm broken? I mean, he came back and won the fight, and Henzo just looked at him like he was crazy. It was like, my kids were in the audience, It was inconceivable to him. And I think Cormier is like, well, I got kids who pay attention, my friends, my family, my team. You know what? I got to go back to the immortal words of Sylvia in Pillow Talk. My friends all say it's that some of my friends will say it's not all right, but I don't have to follow them home on some cold and lonely night. Hey man, people have lots of advice. Sometimes it's okay to do the smart thing. I'm a full believer in running away to live and not fight another day. You know what? Actually, I say that, and I bear the wounds of very specifically not having run away at all and gone to the emergency room. But it's only for multiple occasions like that has taught me, you know what? Guy pulls a gun out. Actually, it was a guy had a roid rage on me, a mafia enforcer in Brooklyn, and lifted up a 100-pound plate and said, one more peep out of you and I'll crack your skull. And everything in my being was screaming for saying, peep, I just did it, man. Sometimes you hold it, fold it, it's okay. But I'm not wanting to fight a John Jones to prove what? To what? Something to myself?
Especially when Jones, I mean, you talk about again just destroying this guy.
Yeah.
Wrote so much for you dying for. Well, he parodied the whole thing about, oh, I'm willing to die. He's like, I guess you're not willing to die. So much for
he said be prepared to, and he goes, I guess you're not willing to. You know, I mean, it's like, nah, like somebody said, you know, Jones is the kind of guy you're doing coke with. And he's like, hey, you ready? You want to really turn it up now? And the guy's like, yeah, and he pulls out a gun and like, let's play some Russian roulette. It's like, come on, man. You know, I mean, he's super talented, but you also get the sense that he's not. You know, he's not. I mean, you know, Rashad Evans goes, oh, he's so two-faced. He never said what the other face looked like. And that's the deal, man. This is, I mean, that's kind of what happens with Oxbow, like especially Oxbow with British fans.
Are we gonna air your dirty laundry?
No, everybody was like, oh, Eugene seems like such a nice guy on stage, and you know, so I'm sure the scary thing he seems like a nice guy on stage. The scary thing on stage is just a show, not realizing that the show is the guy off stage. The guy on stage is the real guy. And British fans have found themselves in bad situations on more than one occasion for precisely that fucking reason. It's like, you know, you're getting a glimpse of the unreconstructed id of Eugene Robinson.
It worked out a little different in Austin, Texas, didn't it?
What's that?
It worked out a little different in Austin, Texas, didn't it?
Well, oh no, they just asked me to put my pants on in Austin, Texas. They didn't care what I did, you know.
Oh yeah. I was confusing you and the guy from the Afghan Wigs. It happens all the time, I'm sure.
What? Oh no, people do say that the Oxbow and the Afghan Wigs sound. I don't hear the similarity. What happened to him?
Are you kidding me? Oh, he repeatedly got in trouble in Austin, Texas. But in the 90s, he got his head busted open and got put in the hospital for. He hit the bouncer at Liberty Lunch with the 2x4, I believe.
Oh.
Was promptly hospitalized.
There's a great photograph of me, you know, face to face with the bouncer, and what you can't see in the photograph is that we were fighting this intense we're having this intense hand fight where he kept covering my wrist, and I kept reversing it and re-grabbing his wrist, you know, and I was holding it just enough, like jiu-jitsu style, to let him break toward the thumb, so I could grab and hold it to the side, and I could see these guys had absolutely no desire, as little desire as I had to fight three guys at once, you know. In fact, I think they had done the math, and I was probably, you know, it's show value, man.
When are you going to put together your next book proposal? Scuffles, I have won. Or
well, because
and also little tidbits of, like, you know, what the camera didn't show was we had a really intense thumb wrestling match going on.
Well, look in the fight book.
I had the dude's number.
In the fight book, I talk about all the fights I lost, you know. So maybe the Scuffles thing would be a good follow up. But
Triumphant Scuffles.
Scuffles, I like that. Yeah, I was gonna open a restaurant and call it Grumbles, you know, for the solo diner, you know. But no. I mean, I think that I don't know. I think DC has just gotta, you know, it's all right, man. Go back to your commentating gig. Stand up from the table. Go. I'm fucking whatever. What it's gonna take to get better. I'm not. But he's stuck. Like a lot of us, he's stuck, and he's gonna go through with it. And for what end? You know?
Yeah, it's not something he can put on a beret and grow a Lemmy mustache his way out of.
Yep.
Or end a show.
Yep.
Making people unstuck, other than being haunted by the words of the show. Thank you for joining us. Follow us on Twitter at Eugene S. Robinson, at Kid Nate, at Alexi Old. Please give us a thumbs up, Eugene.
I'm gonna do a whole Hamlet this way. Oh, but what a rogue I'm oh, that this two sun flesh should melt and thaw and resolve itself into a dew. Oh, on the parapet. Anyway.
Throw in a red rum.
Leave comments on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com. On YouTube, MMA Nation. On iTunes, visit Bloody Elbow. Read Eugene at Ozzy.com. Be sure to check out all three of us on Amazon, and we'll be back next week with another installment If I Did It. We don't know what we'll be just talking about yet because the PR mistakes have yet to be made.
Yep.